and we find a lot of people that we come into, their businesses might be running well, and they're sitting there and they say that we're having a great result. They're happy with the money that they're making, but they don't realize what money they're leaving on the table.
So I'm joined today by Chris de Closey from Switch Hotel Solutions. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
You probably get asked this a lot. What was the problem you were looking to solve when you first came to market, or you thought, oh, I've got a better idea. This is what Switch Hotel Solutions needs to accommodate in this market?
So I had the idea to develop Switch Hotel Solutions and really trying to fix the need within the market. I was working in Expedia and I saw an opportunity for consultants that were working there. These consultants were charging an arm and a leg to management rights businesses. There was one guy, I remember seeing him, and he was charging $7,000-8,000 a month to a property. And this guy was just taking the strategies we give to him when I was at Expedia, and he would just rebrand them as his own and say, hey, this is what I think we should do for your property. Mm-hmm. I found that I thought, I'm in the management rights space. I've been in it. I grew up in it. I spent 10 years working in management rights properties. And I thought I could do it better. So a month before I got married, I left the job, left the safe Expedia role and started Switch. And since then, we've continued to grow and been able to provide a really affordable solution for management rights operators and accommodation providers alike across Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, right. How long have you been around for?
So I've been around inside Switch for 6 years now. We're coming up to our 6th birthday in October. But I've been in the hotel and management rights space and the online marketing space with hotels for almost 15 years now. So I started at Outrigger Twin Towns Resort before it was bought out by Mantra.
Right. Okay.
I was there for 6 and a bit years, started as a school-based trainee. So one of my subjects within year 10 was actually to go to work on a Friday. So every Friday I wouldn't go to school, I'd go to work instead, which, you know, as a 16-year-old, you think that's the best thing ever.
Yeah,
you're earning a nice $7 an hour as a trainee. And then I went through that, and I was with the hotel and actually did all my courses and things like that. And then once I graduated high school, I then went to university and studied tourism as well, while still working full time in the hotel space. Yeah. So it's pretty much the only thing I've ever done apart from working at KFC and Pizza Hut as a youngin. But
good grounding there.
Exactly.
Customer facing.
Develops a love for KFC, that's for sure.
So, Chris, it's a very competitive space. Obviously, the MLR and accommodation space, heavily concentrated with tech and that kind of stuff. What's one of the boldest product moves Switch Hotel Solutions has made in order to sort of get it in the forefront of the industry?
Yeah. Within the management rights industry, accommodation providers are often looking for an edge. So one of the things that we often suggested to really make some bold moves for them is to really leverage tech within their business. So a lot of people are not using tech at all. They're still using old operating systems. There's some out there that are archaic that I won't name here today, but I think everybody knows which ones they are. Yeah. And one of the things that we've done is we've started to include tech into all of our packages. So we partner with Room Price Genie, which is a fantastic software solution. And we include that within all of our packages for all compatible hotels that work with us. So we've got 80 hotels, I believe, or similar that are working with Room Price Genie and with us. And by including that tech into their business and within our services as well, they're getting the best of both worlds. So they're getting an opportunity to have a revenue management team and a marketing team that is knowledgeable, that is skillful, that has an understanding of what levers to pull to make their business grow. Yeah. But they're also getting leading tech like Room Price Genie that allows them to really drive their business forward. Yeah. We're also building new tech as well. So we've got a new product that we're building internally for ourselves that's going to help with pricing decisions as well. Yeah. That's going to have an online scraping model and that's going to provide some competitive feedback to our revenue analysts as well, just to help them make more informed pricing decisions as well.
Yeah, right. So obviously people getting into the industry, they want to have that edge, and you've mentioned that. And what would you say one of the biggest misconceptions, or probably the biggest maybe downfalls of an entrepreneurial sort of mindseted MLR operator comes in and goes, oh, I can handle this myself and I can do that. No, I don't need to pay anyone. Why should someone consider using Switch Hotel Solutions?
One of the things that I'm finding is a lot of people come into the management rights space and they're not really sure what they're doing, or a new operator enters it. And often when we're talking to them at that phase, they're often asking us, why should we work with Switch Hotel Solutions? Yeah. We tell these operators that you should be working with somebody like Switch because the management rights space is much more than just check-ins, check-outs, and a bit of marketing.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to wear the hats with the body corporate. They've got to deal with the common areas. They've got to deal with all the different pieces and the investors.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many moving parts that happen with their business. Often we find that the marketing and the revenue management side of things is left by the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
So our customers and the management rights operators
Mm-hmm.
are sitting there and they're saying, everything's going great. I've got a great handle on this. Oh no, I've got no bookings next month. And then they panic and then they make pricing decisions that aren't the most informed. They'll drop their rates. And then that's having a negative flow on impact of their business. It's dropping their incomes. It's dropping their owners' incomes. They're going to potentially lose owners because they're upset with returns. So that flow on effect that we find is that people who have that entrepreneurial mindset think that they can do everything themselves, which there's no doubt that they can. What we do is not we are very good at what we do, and what we do is not unique. There's other people that do what we do as well. I believe that we do it better, but what we do is we give them the professional support from somebody who understands the management rights space and has the ability to drive their business forward and is consistently looking at it. We don't have any lock-in contracts on what we do for it, so it's up to us to ensure that we're getting the results for the clients every single month.
So just to be clear, you're in the holiday space, right? No permanent, no long-term, no lease renewals, none of that property management stuff in Switch Hotel Solutions?
That's correct, yeah. Switch Hotel Solutions doesn't do anything for permanence or long terms. We're exclusively in holiday letting. And of course, we work with motels and short-term rental businesses as well, Airbnb operators, etc. That's a burgeoning market within Australia and New Zealand. And we've got some growth within that space as well.
Okay, so now we've established the market you're in. What are some of the trends or the market habits you may have noticed post-COVID, say?
One of the major trends that we've noticed post-COVID is booking windows. So customers are often hesitant to book further out, and because they're understanding that there's a lot of opportunities within the market, customers are finding that they're a bit more clued on to the fact that if they wait longer, they might get a better deal. Customers that also know that if they wait longer and the market starts to constrain, they might have to pay a little bit more. So a lot of our clients are giving the feedback that customers are saying, oh, it was cheaper 3 weeks ago, it was cheaper 4 weeks ago. But also at the same time, customers are anecdotally saying to our clients, I waited to book it last minute because there was so much out there. I was waiting to find myself a deal. Yeah,
perfect. If you were approached by a vendor and they said, look, Chris, I'm going to give you 24 hours to prove to me that you're the best solution to drive my booking, my revenue, my ADR higher, how would you approach the first 24 hours of onboarding a new client?
So if somebody came to Switch and said, well, you've got 24 hours to show us an instant impact of what you can do for our business, what we would do is we would follow our typical process. So the same thing happens for every single client, and we do what we call our initial onboarding or our initial review. So we deep dive into their business and we look at their data trends. How is their property competing against their competitors? What's the overall market trends that we're seeing? And how can we capitalize on what they're looking at? So, are they overpriced? Are they underpriced? Are they running at a really high occupancy? And are they leaving money on the table? Is their occupancy really low and we need to change some pricing strategies accordingly? So we'd look at their pricing strategies. We look at their marketing strategies, the way that their rooms are sold online. How can we get that property more visibility and moving forward? So the first 24 hours is what happens for every single client. It's all about reviewing their data and then making those intelligent decisions from there.
Fantastic, Chris. Obviously, we're entering into an AI era. Where technology is probably going to replace a number of positions in the workplace. What are AI? You've got automation, you've got data, you've got all this stuff being fired away at vendors to try and for them assess their business worth and obviously try and create more growth. Buzzwords, or is it legitimate? And you guys are sort of factoring this into your forward thinking.
The AI era, as you've mentioned, is a really interesting piece. A lot of people are saying it's a very buzzword, and a lot of the management rights space is very slow to take these things up as well. But it's definitely not a buzzword from our perspective. There's amazing tools out there like Room Price Genie and other tools that you can leverage as well to get the best decisions made for your business. For example, Room Price Genie. We use it within all of our clients, or 90% of our clients that can integrate within that software. And that software is running 24 hours a day. So it's making pricing decisions when we're sleeping. If an opportunity for 5 or 6 bookings come in overnight, and it's for a future date that you might not have realized, or customers are making a bunch of bookings because something's just been announced, it has the opportunity to increase your pricing and protect your future growth.
Yeah.
So that way, then you know that the software is going to look after it.
Mhm.
From our perspective as well, it's great because it gives clients the opportunity to know that their pricing is running even on weekends when we're not.
Yep.
We're available for our clients if there's a major drama on weekends, but the pricing software has the ability to do so.
Right.
The automations piece and AI, I think that there's so many AI tools out there that can be leveraged. There's a new tool that's come out called Host AI that's great for short-term rental businesses.
Mhm.
It can respond to emails. It can respond to Airbnb messages on behalf of the operator. It doesn't sound like it's an AI tool. You build the knowledge base up in it and you tell it what you want it to know.
Yeah.
And it also then learns. So for example, if you're talking about a customer message you and says, oh, what's the height of your car park? You haven't loaded that into the knowledge base. You reply back to that person and say the car park is 2.1 meters.
Yeah.
The AI will learn that.
Yeah.
So next time a customer asks it, it can automatically
So effectively,
reply
you
for
keep
you.
adding to the data knowledge bank.
That's correct.
And that just obviously keeps helping you streamline the business more.
Exactly right.
Yeah, right.
And automations as well. You want to make sure that you're automating as much as you can within your business.
Yeah,
so
right.
the automations piece is a really specific thing. You want to make sure all your information is going out automatically.
Yeah.
Anything that can be done that doesn't require a touch from the operator should be getting done.
Yeah.
Customers understand that's how the booking journey works nowadays.
Mhm.
Obviously, in some markets, a little bit different where you've got an older demographic, but that is even starting to see the uptick.
So, Chris, answer me this. Obviously, tech's moving at a pretty rapid rate, right? And if you're not sort of tech savvy, you'd probably want to get people around you that understand the nuances and that science behind it all. Where do you see the industry progressing in the next 5 years? I know 5 years in the tech world's a long time, but where do you see the industry progressing to? And what, in 5 years' time, if we're sitting down having the same conversation, what might we be talking about at that point?
In 5 years' time, I think we'll be sitting down and we'll be talking about all the different pieces of AI and different tools that are working within there.
Yeah.
I think that we'll start to see that there's some of the older operating systems are going to be sunsetted out as they start to lose touch with the new norm. So systems like Resly is a fantastic system that I'd suggest using. That's going to continue to iterate and continue to build more automations, more tools for operators to use.
Yeah.
I think that will it replace some jobs? Possibly. But I think as well, at the same time, it's already happened. So if you're not using the tools that are available within your systems already, you're probably paying staff too much.
Mm-hmm.
And we sit here and we say, oh, we don't want people to lose their jobs. There's plenty of other jobs out there for these people to step into. They can also, develop into new roles as well. However, in our management rights space or any accommodation provider space, less wages means you're going to get a higher multiple in the business when you're selling, which means more money.
Every operator is different, right? They've all got their own way of doing things. They've all got their something. How do you potentially garden path or lead a vendor from being reactive to being more strategic in their business work ethic?
A lot of operators, when we come and see them and we come and understand what they're doing, they are very reactive in their business. So they'll sit there and they'll say, how can we get to a position where customers, we're in front of the market, we're continuously building. So what we always say to them is, let's look at how your data trends perform. So if you're consistently reacting to pricing changes or you're consistently reacting to events last minute, let's take an approach to have a more strategic decision. So let's look at how we're pricing our property previously, how we're marketing our property previously. What can we do to get a better result in the long run? And that's all based on their data. So looking at their data and really deep diving to understand the trends that they're seeing. Are those trends in line with the market trends? And if they're not, how can we get that property to be in line or better than the market trends? So, for example, are they picking up bookings in a very last minute window, but is the average daily rate lower than what the market trends are? So if they change their booking window, say from 7 days to a 30-day booking window, if the average daily rate trend in that 30-day window is a higher ADR, we're going to be able to get a better revenue result for that person by developing a strategy targeted towards those longer booking windows.
Fantastic. There's obviously proof in the numbers any which way you look at it, and it's a common theme in a lot of the podcast interviews that I do. The numbers don't lie. You can't change good numbers. In fact, you can improve bad numbers, but you can't change the good stuff. So what separates a good operator from a really great operator? What makes them? What gives them the edge, and what makes them better at what they do?
Well, Switch has been around for 5 years, so we've seen lots of different types of operators: good operators, operators who need a little bit of work, and we've also seen great operators. The one thing that I think really separates all the different types of operators is the willingness to change.
Yeah.
Management rights historically is always a very stuck in their ways type industry.
Yeah.
You've got somebody who might have been running the business for 10, 15 years. They're using the same old operating system. They're doing things manually. We just have to look back 10, 15 years ago, and it was all the reception books when people would check in, right? You'd write it down and you'd erase it out. Those people who, there's still books out there, and you probably see it in your space as well. But the people who are willing to adopt new technology and willing to change embracing it are the ones who are going to succeed. Every piece of technology might not be the best piece, but if they're willing to understand what's out there, they're more willing to.
I was thinking you want to go into the line of understanding the habits of the customer. If their line of booking changes, well, you've obviously got to be more strategic to get in front of that curve rather than sort of be reactive and waiting to get the dribs and drabs of what's left over.
Yeah, that's right. And you also see a lot of them, they're not willing to increase their prices. They're not willing to change their strategies. And you see it a lot. I can't change my prices because I've got so-and-so who comes every Christmas and that's the price that they pay, which is fantastic that you've got that repeat customer and they think that that's a loyal customer. But those customers don't come in the middle of the year when it's quiet. They don't come when we need the bookings. They only want to come at the peak times and they're only loyal because they're getting a cheap price. So at some point, loyalty has to go out the window if you want to drive a better business result.
What's one of the biggest mistakes an operator or a vendor may make in their marketing strategy? Give us some insight into some of the big improvements that you identify, and you obviously guide the operators onto the right path. What are some of the biggest mistakes or pitfalls a vendor could make in the marketing space?
One of the biggest mistakes and pitfalls somebody can make in the marketing space is having too little structure within their marketing plan. So, for example, we often come into a client and we'll see that they might have 35 rooms and they'll have a 1-bedroom apartment category, a 2-bedroom apartment category, and maybe a 3-bedroom for argument's sake. And those are the 3 categories that they have. And then they'll sit there and say, but this room's a really good room and this room's a bit of a poor room. So what we suggest to them, the first thing that we do is recategorize their properties. So taking the ability to understand you might have a lead-in room type or a budget category, standard, however you'd like to call it, and then a superior category. What that does is, as a marketing strategy, it gives you something extra to upsell customers into, but it also then gives you a different price point within the market for customers to understand, well, I can get into this room that's going to be cheaper room, but it might not be the best, or I can go into a superior category. It then also helps manage those customer expectations as well. So you're really marketing towards the customer. The customers know what they're going to get. If they stay before and they see the photos online that they're going to get a spectacular renovated room and then they get a property that is less than desirable, it creates that negative stigma within the clientele. And we see that often. That still happens with the industry regularly.
Chris, obviously you're in a position where you get to analyse a lot of information and you have data partners that share and you can sort of paint this potential futuristic picture. What are some of the things that vendors or in the holiday space should be sort of working towards, and things that are coming, but they should be starting to plan that for that moment now?
So when we're looking at how the future is going to progress, we talk about what vendors can look at and how they're going to continue to grow their business in the future. The things that vendors need to be looking at now is they need to be looking at their technology. Technology is the one thing that's going to drive us forward. They need to be looking at how they can streamline their business operations with technology. How can they make smarter business decisions?
So embrace it rather than
just embracing technology is the only thing that I can suggest.
I think most operators, they potentially come to you, Chris, when they've realised that they might be missing out on a bit of market share. They say, okay, Chris, look at my numbers, look at what I'm doing. Are they genuinely shocked when you bring to their attention how much money they're potentially leaving on the table and what they're missing out on? Like, you must sort of go, right, well, here are the areas that I've identified that I can improve your business. Are they interested and obviously generally sort of intrigued as to, oh, I didn't realise that aha moment?
We definitely do find that, and we find a lot of people that we come into, their businesses might be running well and they're sitting there and they say that we're having a great result, they're happy with the money that they're making, but they don't leave or realise what money they're leaving on the table. We've come into some clients that are established businesses that have 40 to 50 keys in their holiday pool, and we've grown their revenue by 60% in the first year. So we've also had businesses where we've grown 30%, but I'm talking 30% on a $2 million business. So there's really some key opportunities out there. The businesses are running well, but they're not optimized. And that's what we always say to people with the way that we do things is It's not a fix it once or you set and forget it. It's a consistent optimization of their business, of their strategies, testing, learning what works for them, and how can we develop the strategy accordingly. In saying that, the strategies that we implement, we look at the data, we develop a strategy based on the data, but the customers and the market might not react well to that strategy. So it's up to us to consistently change that until it gets to that point where it works, and then consistently optimize it.
So from a Switch Hotel Solutions point of view, what would be the top 3 kind of client that would come to you and reap the most reward?
From a Switch Hotel Solutions perspective, the top 3 types of people that could come to us and get the best results is operators who are willing to change or who have identified that there is a need to change, operators who are new to the industry, and then as well as operators who are set in their ways. We often find that those who are new to the industry come into it, they don't really have the understanding of what's happening. They might be buying a business that can use a bit of help, because typically they're not going to come in and buy a multi-million-dollar management rights business. And of course, the operators who are set in their ways, we often find that those are the best clients to work with, because you come into it and they'll say, this is the way that we've always done it. And you really have to pitch them, you have to sell to them as the reasons why we should be making these changes. And then as soon as you see those changes and they see the rewards and the benefits of what we're doing, they're open-minded, they love it, and they say, do what you need to do.
Great.
So those are the types of clients that we really look for, simply because we know that we can make an impact, and we can make an impact to almost any business out there. We're very confident in doing so, and we're confident in covering the cost that we charge to our clients. We have clients who have growth within the first month that covers our annual fee. So we're very confident that with what we can do. And as I said, there's no lock-in contracts at what we do. It's all month to month. So it's up to us to ensure that we're performing. Sometimes events like cyclones happen on the Gold Coast that do impact bookings and future stays. However, it's about adjusting the strategies accordingly to show the clients the value of what we can bring for them.
Fantastic. And we've highlighted the top 3 clients would come to you, and the return on investment. Let's talk about that. So typically, you've mentioned some numbers before. What would be sort of the average sort of takeaway from someone coming in that's identified and they're willing to sort of go all in with your services? What would be some of the maybe give us a return on investment sort of average so that someone could look to pick up their game and get that growth in their business?
A typical return on investment for somebody who would be working with Switch would see a minimum 20% growth within their first year. Sometimes clients won't see that, and simply because they're not responsive to the strategies or they're not open to the strategies that we want to put forward. But as I said, we've had some clients who have grown 40, 50, 60% in that first year. We've also come to some clients, some really big clients as well, who bought businesses when they were small and have grown letting pools. So we've then helped develop those strategies and change the strategies accordingly as their pool gets bigger. So each strategy is different for each client. It's all tailored for them. But we aim to try to hit minimum growth numbers of 20%, which not only covers our costs, increases the value of their business exponentially, but then also provides them some really good money in their back pocket at the end of the day.
Well, Chris, I can personally sort of vouch. I've been in the coalface, here on the Gold Coast, knocking on doors and speaking to vendors. Any which time Switch Hotel Solution name comes up in the conversation, it's a raving review. So kudos to you. Obviously, doing some really good stuff, and I think a lot of the vendors can certainly support that. So what I wanted to do is thank you for your insight and your energy here today. I was really excited to be able to get you on the program. Love your work, Chris. Well done.
Thanks,
you very much.
Sid. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Have a good day.